Guys, this is a little crazy. This isn't clickbait. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is real, and it's happening now. The United States has just allowed a man once considered one of the most dangerous terrorists on earth to enter the country, not quietly, not covertly, but publicly under diplomatic protection to speak at the United Nations. And it's just blows my mind because, President Trump is supposed to be anti-terror everything, no matter who you are. So the dude's name is Mohammad al-Julani. His legacy, al-Qaeda in Iraq, Jabhat al-Nusra, and HTS. His ambition, allegedly to orchestrate an attack that would eclipse 9/11 and Pearl Harbor combined. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. We know he has operatives inside the U.S. We know his networks have tested aviation sabotage, DC assault scenarios, and local coordinated attacks. And we know they've used fake identities to slip through the cracks. So while the headlines, they're all talking about diplomacy, the reality is far darker. What we're talking about, as always, is never about instilling fear. It's about facts. It's about how we got here, what's at stake, and what you need to do right now to help protect yourself and your family. Because if the worst case scenario unfolds, one of the most important things you're going to have is your emergency communications plan, and that will be an integral part in helping you stand between chaos and survival. So I'm pulling back the curtain on one of the most elusive figures in modern jihadist history, from his early days in al-Qaeda in Iraq to leading Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is now HTS. His trajectory reveals how militia networks evolve, fracture, and adapt. But this isn't just about Syria. There are allegations, and yes, they're still under investigation, but allegations that Julani's networks seated sleeper cells inside the United States. I'm going to break down the claimed three-part plot, the mechanics of terrorist infiltration, and why hybrid cells complicate U.S. counterterrorism. Julani joined al-Qaeda in Iraq during the U.S. invasion of 2003. After 5 years at Camp Boca, which was a notorious U.S. detention center, he emerged with a blueprint: build al-Qaeda's Syrian branch. That eventually became Jabhat al-Nusra and then later rebranded as HTS. By 2016, Julani had publicly split from al-Qaeda, positioning HTS as a Syrian nationalist force. But critics say the rebrand masked continuous extremist operations. Go figure, right? Shocking. Now, let's talk about the alleged sleeper cells within HTS.
It said on the bottom of the screen, does Iran have sleeper cells? ? And I thought to myself, it would be more shocking if they didn't have people that they'd infiltrated over the southern border in the past 4 years than if they did.
Well, thank you for having me, Leland. And you're absolutely right. I don't even understand why this is a question. I hate to be so blunt, but that's how I feel about it. They have sleeper cells here. They're here. They have been here. They are just waiting for the right moment.
Intelligence leaks have given us a glimpse into HTS's evolving alliances with former al-Qaeda affiliates and regional jihadist groups, which raise concerns about mixed cells and that these operatives are blending tactics and ideologies from Hamas, ISIS, al-Qaeda, and Taliban factions. They've also mentioned sleeper cell allegations, suggesting that HTS-linked operatives may have entered the U.S. under false identities, exploiting refugee flows and forged documentation. And then probably, despite all that, the most alarming thing is the talk of hybrid terror plots, such as that alleged three-part plan involving aviation, sabotage on the domestic side, and assault on Washington, D.C., and local attacks which mirror tactics used in complex coordinated terrorist attacks, which are just designed to overwhelm emergency response systems. Now, these claims remain unconfirmed, but they've triggered renewed scrutiny of how terrorists enter the U.S. under fake identities. And although they're unconfirmed, whether they're unconfirmed or not, let's just for a second think of all the things that are currently right in front of our faces that the majority of us know are true, but they're still unconfirmed. It's no secret. And in fact, it's pretty well known, actually, that terrorist entry often exploits refugee flows. Forged documents, stolen passports, and some even used clean skins, which are individuals with no prior record to avoid detection. And what's really complicates things further is these emergence of the mixed cells And basically because these groups are now blending members from Hamas, HTS, ISIS, al-Qaeda, and even the Taliban. And these hybrids blur operational signatures, making it harder for U.S. agencies to attribute threats and respond decisively. And of course, there's always the ever-present other player that's always involved in all of this, and that is Israel. And that's because Israel's intelligence services aggressively target shared enemies, especially in Syria and Lebanon. And their operations often disrupt plots before they reach our western shores. But U.S. military aid to Israel flows through a complex pipeline that, despite a government shutdown, somehow we always manage to find money for. Now, look, October 7th, the day of the Hamas-led assault on Israel, that is literally viewed by some analysts as a dress rehearsal, or more specifically, a test of coordination, propaganda, and asymmetric warfare. The tactics used, things like, the drone swarms, tunnel breaches, and mass hostage taking mirror strategies seen in the HTS and ISIS playbooks. Now, do I honestly think that, they could come in here and conduct a mass hostage taking? Not like we saw in Israel, but could they execute a seizure of a specific target or targets, especially multiple soft targets? Absolutely. And getting just a little conspiracy theory just for a second, it's amazing how much we never found out about the Las Vegas shooter. But if you've forgotten, there are some fringe reports claiming ISIS ties. And then on top of all that, you have Jeffrey Epstein and whether or not he was a Mossad blackmail operation. And we have, of course, all the controversy that's surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination. And, all of these hinting at possibly having a foreign government nexus to them. And one thing I am a fanatic, and I apply this liberally in my law enforcement career, is that facts matter. In an age of misinformation, we owe it to the victims and to ourselves to separate speculation from evidence. So, let's not fool ourselves. While al-Julani has publicly committed to preventing threats against the U.S., analysts warn that HTS's past ties to al-Qaeda and its evolving network structure still pose risks, including the potential for sleeper cells and the hybrid plots. And this is why bringing into our, core how this directly affects you and me is that an emergency communications plan is an essential component to respond swiftly and accurately in case of a coordinated attack. Now, getting into the whole comms planning of this, in the event of a terrorist attack, communication breakdowns can cost lives. And in one of these videos that I'm, planning on doing in the future, I'm going to do a real deep dive into my personal comms plan. But for this one, this is just going to be, things you should look at or consider from like a 10,000 foot view. Things like having redundant channels, and I don't mean frequencies, but using multiple platforms, text, radio, social media, encrypted apps, satellites, all that stuff, just to ensure message delivery. And also have some structure and things ready to go, like pre-scripted messaging. Prepare templates for your team, your community, your family. That way for, when you're trying to communicate important things like evacuation orders or shelter-in-place instructions or status updates, it's right, it's a good way just to have a structured thing to make sure it's time holder. Also with that, your stakeholder coordination, identify key contacts, families, coworkers, local authorities, and establish check-in protocols, which blends right into having trusted sources. The best thing that you can do is from, people who are in the affected area, giving you the unfiltered information of exactly what they are seeing. And also, if you're going to form all these, plans, assign resources to have role assignments, assign communication responsibilities within your household or your team, who sends updates, who monitors the news, who checks on others, because when it comes down to a real world situation, you do not want duplication of efforts taking place. And that goes across the board in pretty much every operational, avenue for survival. From everything I'm seeing, and guys, I'm not even addressing what's going on nightly currently in Portland and Chicago, but I think it's a safe bet to say that things are going to get worse before they get worse. You need to be ready to be your own first responder. Even if Al-Julani's current posture appears moderate, the history of HTS and its global jihadist ties demand for us to have diligence. A well-prepared communications plan isn't paranoia at any stretch at this point. It's simply your personal resilience. So, despite his history as an al-Qaeda affiliate and HTS commander, Al-Julani, now Syrian President Ahmad al-Shahara, was permitted to speak at the UN General Assembly just last month due to his formal political transition and Syria's evolving diplomatic status. And this move has sparked intense debate over security, legitimacy, and geopolitical strategy. So basically, here's where I think we land. This isn't just about Al-Julani. It's about the architecture of asymmetric warfare evolving right under our noses. It's about how soft targets become strategic objectives, how hybrid cells rewrite the rules of engagement, and how diplomatic optics can mask operational threats. I said it already in this video once, I say it all the time. You certainly don't need to be paranoid. You need to be prepared, because if things happen, the lights go out, whether it's from a cyber attack, a coordinated assault, or just a cascading infrastructure failure, your emergency comms plan becomes one of your lifelines. Not your phone, not your Wi-Fi, but your plan. The one that you built when things were quiet, the one that doesn't rely on luck or latency. Al-Julani's UN appearance wasn't just a speech, it was a signal, a test of how far the Overton window can stretch before the public blinks. And if we're not careful, it won't be the last time a former jihadist commander walks through the front doors of global diplomacy while sleeper cells are just waiting in the wings. So stay sharp, stay skeptical, and above all, stay connected, because in the next chapter, it won't be the headlines that save you. It'll be the plan you made when no one else was watching. So let's get to work. And with that, we'll see you in the next one. Be safe.